Hi everybody, Dr. Debunk here, doing another video on things that need to be debunked. So I'm Dr. Debunk. If you haven't seen me before, I debunk medical myths, garbage, and crap spread by doctors and other health professionals. Now I'm a family practice doctor of almost 40 years now, but after 10 years of practice, I wanted to be more than a licensed drug pusher, so I began to study human health, not the medical science of health, but what is human health science? And so I'm more of a mixture of naturopathic and other natural remedies to help my patients. And years ago, I saw the need to start getting more accurate health information to patients. And so that's when I started Dr. Debunk, and I've done about 20 videos. Dr. Debunk was here years ago, and then he went away. COVID hit, and it was a mess. And so I've done about 20 videos now, and I'm trying to do one a week, sometimes two. Well, today's video is going to address the area of pollution. So health professionals like me have different ways to categorize human health. And I've come up with a system of categorizing 10 attributes based on scientific principles that determine your health. So if you violate these principles, you won't have health. If you amplify the correct manifestation. So why is exercise so good as a health principle? Because it follows the circulatory theory of aging. So the circulatory theory of aging says the rate at which you lose circulation is the rate at which you're going to age and die and get disease. And that's true. Well, there's another theory of aging that says the rate at which your body's being polluted in all forms is the rate at which you're going to age and die. And so pollution now is a huge problem in modern society. We love our technology, but it's killing us. Because the byproducts of technology, of building technology, our cell phones, our fax machines over there that you can see, and cars and everything we love, creates waste products. And by and large, this stuff is just dumped in the ocean. And so the greatest source of pollution now for humans, without a doubt, is what's in our food. And it's catastrophic. And this year I'm going to address it aggressively. We have land. I live in Central California, and we have a couple acres we're going to farm, and we're doing a prototype, but I'm getting off store-bought vegetables and fruits, and eventually other meat products. But anyway, so a related subject is the things that revolve around our food, like something called Teflon. So Teflon is a coating they put on pans, and they've been doing it since the 70s, I believe. And Teflon, when it came out, they used it in the military, but they realized nothing sticks to it once you coat it to your substance. And so it became extremely popular with pots and pans because now you had stuff that your eggs and everything else doesn't stick to, and it was great. But the question of toxicity started to get stronger and bigger and stronger and bigger, and it all culminated by 2015 when DuPont was completely busted for the fact that Teflon is an absolute poison. It's bad for us. It should not be on pans at all, and yet it's on pans today. And so there's documentaries on this, but what you can do, and I'll explain it by giving a little overview. They made this movie in 2019, 15? I forget. It's called Dark Waters. And the movie is a movie version documentary of what happened with Teflon, this lawyer who was like a pit bull and he wouldn't let go of it. And it took 15 years to bring DuPont all the way through court. And they lost or settled the lawsuit, I don't know, for like $800 million. They got busted. Teflon is bad for us, blah, blah, blah. And it's a fun movie, but it's one of these movies I call propaganda movies. So it's supposed to be a recreation of real events, of how Teflon was exposed, that it's bad for us. It's a poison. It gunks up our cells. It gets into the cells of our body and never leaves, apparently. But all kinds of health problems are associated with Teflon. Well, supposedly. And so, anyway, the movie is what I call a propaganda movie. Now, I'm not saying all movies are propaganda, but a lot of them are. the people that pay for them, they are selling us an agenda. And Americans have become wide awake. This is partly why I made Dr. Debunk, because I do not trust the government or big corporations or rich people, because they have an agenda of money and power, and they don't care about us at all. They don't care about anybody unless you're a multi-millionaire. I don't think they care. And so the government doesn't work for our interest. And so the movie, in this case, is a propaganda machine that, as far as I'm concerned, was paid for by DuPont. Because the movie has a happy ending. It's great. The little guy, the lawyer, the hero, he doesn't let go. 15 years to settle this case. And finally it gets proved. DuPont knew that Teflon was bad. DuPont knew that it was hurting people. And in the end, they have to pay $800 million, blah, blah, blah. And that sounds great. However, they don't address the fact that Teflon never went away. It doesn't matter. After the class action lawsuit was settled, Teflon never went away. Well, wait a second. How's that possible? Well, it's possible because, and I don't know the dates, but DuPont declared, I think somewhere around the time of the video, maybe it was a little later, 2019, I think it was earlier. Yeah, it's earlier. DuPont said that, oh, Teflon's not bad. It's something called PFOA, a chemical that's a residue on Teflon. As we make it, this chemical gets formed, or they use it. I don't know the details. But they said, well, now we can make Teflon without PFOAs. So Teflon, to give you initials, is PTFE. It's polytetrafluoroethylene. But it's just Teflon. It's a fluorinated hydrocarbon. Sorry. And so they were saying that, and I don't know the exact details, that they discovered that PFOA was the problem. And now they got rid of it. So it's safe. But wait a second. That doesn't declare Teflon safe. That just says we found another poison with Teflon called PFOA, and we got rid of it. But the question remains, what about Teflon? And the question is, and I'll get to this, can Teflon exist as a nanoparticle? See, that's the question. Because if it can exist as a small enough nanoparticle, it's going to get into our cells and mess us up. And so we'll get to that. But that is the question. And so the movie doesn't address that at all. And then another piece of propaganda in the movie is the lawyer is proceeding forward with the case, and it goes on and on and on. And then they finally decide to do a study, and it becomes the largest epidemiological study ever, according to the movie. I don't know if that's true or not. And then instead of having the data crunched out in 6 months after they gather it, a year goes by, 2 years, 3 years. And finally, after 4 years, it's a big scene in the movie because they're building to this point and all the people in the lawsuit are getting impatient. It's like 4 years. We're sick. We just want money, to treat our medical problems, blah, blah, blah. And so finally it culminates where the head researcher calls up the guy, the lawyer, and he says, we're done. We've done it. Yes, Teflon is evil. It's Satan incarnate. Blah, blah, blah. DuPont is going to have to eat it. And the doctor researcher says, the reason it took so long is we had so much data. And I'm like, debunk. That's a lie. That just because they had a lot of data, they do have things called computers. And they could have gone through the data, no matter how much it was, in 6 months. 6 months. But it took 4 years. Why? Well, let's see, who paid for the study? DuPont. So while it was being dragged on, they were making $1 billion a year on Teflon. And they weren't losing anything because the lawsuit hadn't settled. So the movie ends anyway, and DuPont tries to weasel out of it, but they can't. And so in the end, they pay $800 million. And the movie ends, yay team, the little guy won. But wait a second, Teflon never left. Because DuPont said PFOA is the bad guy. And so what happened? Well, I don't know the details, but Teflon never went away. So apparently DuPont went to the Environmental Protection Agency and said, Okay, here's the real problem, PFOA. We've gotten rid of it. Teflon's safe. And so I don't know how that happened, but I know Teflon never went away. And I remember years ago seeing on all the pans, PFOA safe. All the Teflon pans that were in the stores now said made without PFOA. I think it was 7, 8 years ago. So that means the Environmental Protection Agency signed off. So basically, here's DuPont lying to the public for 40 years. And then they tell the Environmental Protection Agency, oh, PFOA is the problem. Don't worry about Teflon. And I'm sure the agency must have said, well, how do you know? And you know what DuPont's answer was? Because we said so. Because we're DuPont, and you will believe us. And you know what the EPA said? Okay, we'll believe you. And how do I know? I've never seen the documents, but Teflon is still here. So that's all the evidence I need. You can play games with words all you want, but Teflon has never left. And the evidence is mounting that these so-called stable hydrocarbons and all these other technological chemicals and pesticides, 220,000 artificial chemicals and substances and pesticides and metal plating and all this industrial crap and preservatives in our foods have been created since the turn of the 20th century. And over 50,000 are proprietary. That means they're patented privately, and only the patent office and the government know what this substance is. You and I can't know. There's 50,000 things out there. And as they say in the movie, when the EPA got going, the Environmental Protection Agency, they asked all the companies to give them any information they had about health risks. And then they basically let the companies define that whether the product was safe or not. Wow, that's really protecting the public, isn't it? I mean, that's just so straightforward. That's like giving the wolf the keys to the hen house because the wolf says, I won't eat the chickens. I promise I won't open the door and go eat the chickens. And so, but that's what happened, because Teflon's still here. And so all of that intro to get to this. For something to be a poison, for something to be bad to us, the worst case scenario is it gets into our cells. It can go across the cell membrane. And so this giant little beach ball represents a cell. And I'm going to explain it to you. And if you're not auditory, if you can't do the math and the numbers, I'll show it to you. But this is airtight, well, more or less. But our cell walls inside here would be the cell, a muscle cell, a brain cell. And so this is a semi-permeable membrane. Little particles can get right through. And we call those nanoparticles. And nanoparticles are measured in billions of inches. So what does that mean? So if this, here we go. Here's a blank piece of paper. If this paper represents 1 meter, a nanometer is 1 billion lines. So if you put 1 billion lines from here to here, and this was 1 meter long, which is really about 3 feet, 3.3, then the thickness of the line, it would take 1 billion lines to equal 1 meter in length. So a nanometer is very small. It's ultrasmall. It's 1,000 times thinner than this piece of paper. Okay? And so researchers are kind of sneaking up on, and I haven't looked at a lot, but I looked at enough to get a number, that nanoparticles in the range of 5 to 20 nanometers, nanometers, are the size of molecules that seem to be able to go right through the ball that I just showed you, our cell walls. They seem to be able to wiggle through 5 to 20 or 5 to 50 nanometers in diameter. So that's really small still. And so the question is, can Teflon be eroded or broken down, especially by heating in a pan, into nanoparticles that are that small? Well, I haven't really found an answer yet. But what I am seeing is studies, and so I'm going to talk about one, and I won't name it because I don't want to get in trouble with somebody, because there's a lot more to do. But we see bad health effects from Teflon, and I think even without the PFOA. And so we have to explain that. And so the question is, are these Teflon molecules that are eroding off smaller? Are they from 5 to 50 nanometers in length? So I started looking at the studies, and so I found one that looked pretty good, and immediately I saw the problem. Wait a second. And there's a lot more than what I'm going to tell you here. This study was talking about Teflon, and it was talking about the pharmacokinetics of Teflon plastics in mice. So they did these experiments on mice, and they made Teflon nanoparticles. And they made them anywhere from like 10, what does it say? No, 5 up to 50 micrometers in length. And it's easy to skip right by that part. And so, well, that's about the same size, but no, wait, it's not. I said micrometers, not nanometers. So a micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. And so the particles that this little study here was about on mice was the ranges were 100 to 500 times bigger than what we know any nanoparticles have to be in size. So, and I'll show you a visual of this in a second and you'll get it. But so what their study showed is that particles of this size, 5 to 50 micrometers, measured in millions of an inch, 5 millionths of millionths of a meter to 50 millionths of a meter, not inch. I say inches, but I always mean meters. That's the problem. That's what they studied. And what it showed is there was no Teflon in the blood of the mice. There was no Teflon in the cells. It all washed out. They pooped it out. They peed it out, whatever. So it sounds great. There doesn't seem to be any effect. But wait a second. Your numbers are wrong. You're comparing nanometers to micrometers. So what does that mean? So I'm going to show you. Watch this. This little screen, you can see it. It's just stainless steel. This represents the cell wall. It represents the wall of that ball I showed you. Our cells are round, more or less. And so the question is, a BB has to be smaller than these little teeny holes. Now I punched, if you can see, a couple big holes. And so what I'm going to show you here is these are BBs. Can you see the little BBs? These represent nanoparticles. These are little BBs for a BB gun. And we're saying these BBs are 5 nanometers in diameter, which we know are plenty small enough to go right through the cell wall. That's what this screen is. So watch what happens when I start dropping them. See them going through? Let's get closer. Watch. Oh, there they go. Oh. There they go, down the middle. You get the picture. You could see them dropping. The little BBs, here's one little BB. Gosh, they're small. I couldn't do anything bigger because then the beach ball, but you can see it right there. So you can see that they went through the screen. Now here's the coup de grace. Here's what this is about. So any nanoparticle has to be 5 micrometers to get through your cell wall to poison you. So that's the question. Is Teflon small enough? Well, the study they did didn't determine it because this is the size of their BBs. They were measuring stuff in millionths of a meter, not billions. And the size variation worked out to be 100 to 500 times bigger. So this little beach ball here is about 100 times bigger than this BB. So they're saying that this ball right here can't be pushed through this screen. Do you need to be a scientist to know that's true? Can I push this beach ball through this screen ever? It's ridiculous. This is what they said. Okay, Teflon particles this big can't get through this cell wall. No, duh. Oh my gosh, really? Did all of you not know that? That you can't push a beach ball through this screen? What are they doing here? Why would you make your study parameters? Why would you study the size of a nanoparticle that's 100 times bigger than you know is ever going to get through a cell wall? You're never going to push those size Teflon. Why didn't they study Teflon particles that were 5 nanometers, not 5 micrometers? So remember, a micrometer is 1,000 times bigger than a nanometer. So your scientific study was doomed to show no toxicity. This is what I call a stack study. They're measuring the size of Teflon nanoparticles that we know are gigantically bigger than what's ever going to get into your cells. And so now the study conclusion is, well, let's see, what do they say here? It says, therefore, well, they talk about some other stuff, but this study provides new insight into the long-term toxicity of Teflon microplastics. No, it doesn't. Because we don't need to study the fact that something this big right here can't be pushed through this. And this is what pisses me off. I don't know what they think, but it's like someone's got to do a study. Now, I am going to look around some more. But this is what these people do. This is what has made me just become Dr. Debunk. I'm just sick of it. They do a study that has no relevance to find out if it's toxic. And they do this with everything, you know. To use an example, and then some of you may think I'm crazy, but that's okay. I doubt it, the people that are listening to this. It's like 9/11. 9/11 is the biggest sham that ever occurred. Not because it didn't happen. Billions of people literally saw the airplanes crash into the Twin Towers. We all saw it over and over and over and over again. But the question is, what did it mean? Well, the propaganda machine told us what it means. It said that airplanes can knock down skyscrapers. But that is scientifically impossible. It is impossible, because for that to be true, then the laws of gravity don't apply. The laws of acceleration, according to Newton, don't apply, who also wrote the gravitational theory. The laws of accelerating mass objects transferring energy into a stationary object, that doesn't apply. There was no science there. All of science that we know was suspended because it's really simple. The airplanes damaged 1 or 2 stories. And so all that would have happened, according to gravity and acceleration and scientific principles, is, the one plane hit 15 stories from the top, something like that. And it damaged, say, 16 and 17. So those 2 stories, if the plane damaged enough, you could say would have collapsed. And so then the 15 stories up here, my cell phone, is going to fall 10 feet and smash. But once it hits the intact steel, it stops because the steel is carrying all the weight anyway. And the amount of increased force, it's like a hammer. The top stories hammered it, was nowhere near enough. And it's all been calculated by engineers. There's this, I think it's called the American Academy of Civil Engineers, for the truth of 9/11. And these guys now are, after 22 years, there's 1,100 of them that have signed the documents demanding from the federal government the truth about 9/11. That, look, their conclusion is, and these are the people that build the buildings, the only way for the Twin Towers to fall down is that somebody blew it up. So they don't know who blew it up, and they don't care. And I can't say I have a lot of suspicions who blew it up, but I don't know. I don't have any evidence. But I know science. And so it is scientifically impossible for airplanes to knock down skyscrapers. They could damage certain stories, but that's it. And so it should have just crunched down and stopped. But it came all the way down exactly like, I mean, just go watch buildings being demolished and then go look at 9/11 pictures again, and it's the same thing. So it was somebody's agenda. And again, who knows who? And what's even worse, many people don't realize today that 3 buildings came down. Twin Towers weren't the only 2. Building 7, which is a 48-story building next door to it fell down too. Magically, no plane hit it. And one chunk of debris hit one corner of the building. And they said that started a domino effect that made the whole building collapse 9 hours later. But engineers build buildings with redundancy. You can take 1/3 to 1/2 of the girders out of every single skyscraper in the world, and nothing will happen to it. So it was propaganda. Whoever was doing it, for whatever reason, whoever wired the building and blew them both up, had an agenda. But the media machine silenced everyone except for the sayings. The airplane, the jet fuel, weakened the girders. Really? Steel girders don't even get weak until 2200 degrees, and the Twin Towers burned at 800 or 900 degrees. So how does that work? It's endless. So anyone who's investigated, you don't have to be a scientist, can see, okay, this is somebody's agenda. They blew up the Twin Towers for a reason. We can speculate forever, but I don't care about that. I'm trying to drive home a point that these people can't be trusted. You are a fool, if you trust anything our government or the media or big business or ultra-rich people say. We, the little people, have to do the work. We have to decide for ourselves what's safe. And that's what I'm doing as Dr. Debunk. Now, I know this is a long video, and I'm sure somebody eventually is going to hate me for this. But you know what? I got into medicine to help people. And so this is all, I've said all of that to get to this. This is a long one, 27 minutes. Teflon is poison. It's only a matter of time before it fully comes out. It is an artificially created substance that our body can't seem to metabolize. It's poison. So get rid of your Teflon pans. Don't cook with anything Teflon, period. And all this other crap, they put it on purses, they put it on probably stethoscopes. Hopefully our skin is a great barrier. It seems like it is. But for sure, you have to go home after this, throw away all your Teflon stuff and never buy it again. Teflon coated anything that's going to go anywhere near your mouth, don't do it. And that was the point of this whole 30-minute thing. And I did this study thing to show you this is the deceptiveness of these people. They make studies that are predetermined to give them the outcome they want. I see this in the drug field with drugs. It's unbelievable. The vaccine, and I've done videos on the vaccine. It's ridiculous. The vaccine is the biggest cash cow for the drug companies in the history of cash cows. And I'll be doing another update video on vaccines, so make sure you see the first ones. I did like 9-10-minute videos. But we have to protect ourselves. And cleaning up our food is going to be a big priority for me this next year. And so that's pretty much it. I'm Dr. Debunk. I hope this was understandable, but the analogy I gave you of the ball and the BBs is accurate. You can look these studies up yourself. So that's it. I'm Dr. Debunk with another thing that's been debunked. Thanks for watching.